There's no time to waste. Hosla Indran or Badla. Dhurandhar has caught the country by its throat by a juggler, or like Field Marshal Asif Munir says, Isharag Amari. What I find interesting is that the movie has gone much beyond the movie. It's spinning into different directions. When Anupama Chopra says that he finds the movie inflammatory, testosterone driven, and anti-Pakistani, I want to ask her, Saurabh Galia was my cadet. I was his instructor in Indian Military Academy. I traveled to Palampur and for my book on Sudhir Walia, who's a 9th Special Forces officer, staying right next door. When I went into his house and I held his mother's hands, those hands still carried the weight of a son's mutilated body, eyes gouged out, genitals disfigured, cigarette marks. 21 days he suffered that torture. And 5 of his other soldiers. I want to ask her, have you met last night Himraj's wife, whose head was cut off by a border action team and carried off into Pakistan? She was sitting in protest for the head. The body was cremated without the head. I have served with 17 Maratha Light Infantry, where Bhavsar Maruti, what's his name? Talekar's name, the head was cut off by Ilyas Kashmiri, carried on a pipe, and then handed over to Musharraf and probably played football with. Those people who came here and hit Bombay, this couple of kilometers from here, very close to us, they were an extension of the Pakistan army. They weren't wearing uniform, they were equipped, staffed, trained, resourced, picked, targets configured, strategized by the Pakistan army. If the Houthis and the Hamas is an extension of Iran, why aren't these guys an extension of the Pakistan army? They are. If that be the case, is Dhurandhar, and I want to address the elephant in the room, is it propaganda or is it authentic storytelling? And I want to ask you that. I'm not going to ask you because he's a man of uniform and his views would be considered prejudiced.
Hello everybody, I consider myself very lucky and very privileged to be in this company. Firstly, I want to use 2 words and, when we want to be done with it for now, I'm saying propaganda and nepotism. Propaganda is an extremely serious word, it should not be used like in 1933 when Goebbels was appointed as head minister for propaganda and information to the public. It was an act of government to push a government narrative, taking control of broadcast media. That's what he did. And he was the most powerful person after Hitler. Hitler in his will said he should be chancellor after me. He was for 1 day before he and his wife committed suicide after killing their 6 children with cyanide. It's a very big word. Now let us look at what has happened before this film. In the past, let's say 20 years ago, the National Jury for Film, I was in the National Jury once. The juries for giving national awards was appointed by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. It's not very different from what was happening before. Information Broadcasting Ministry will appoint a jury and awards will be given according to what jury. The juries picked from their predilections already declared and their prejudices already in place, that what they're safe. They never did. In the past, there was no mistakes were made like BJP did with that Israeli head of jury in Mumbai. Otherwise, this is what they had. And also remember, in the past, there was only Doordarshan, and these award-winning movies were shown on Doordarshan. That is propaganda. In a diluted version, but it is propaganda. It's state pushing a narrative. That's what it was. When somebody makes a film, which a producer invests money and tells a story that he or she wants to tell, how does it become propaganda? And secondly, I want to ask, I mean, is it a crime to do propaganda if it is propaganda? What, you want to ban propaganda? Who's going to define that from here on? Somebody wants to tell a story? I think it's very loosely applied because you don't have any valid criticism to make, I think. That's why you're saying this. The second word is nepotism that also keeps cropping up. Now, supposing Mukesh Ambani, if he appoints his son to look after, a substantial part of his business empire, would you call it nepotism? This, I'm saying this is, a carpenter's son will be a carpenter. Somebody asked me once, why are you taking only people you know into your place? I said, yeah, I do amateur theatre. Would you like to send your son or daughter to my place? Because we don't give them any money. They have to come and work 8 hours a day at rehearsals for 6 weeks. Would you like to send your child? What do you mean by nepotism? It needs to be understood differently. It's not like somebody's given a job in government and they appoint only people of their community or language or relatives. So I would say once a person declares a film as fiction, you cannot call it propaganda. This is all I'm saying. Simply because, why do we do fiction? Because in life we cannot control conclusions. We cannot get characters to behave in the way that we want them to behave to create, rasasthanas, conflict points, points of feeling and emotion. We cannot create it, we cannot arrange it from real life events. You may use real life events and fictionalize them to create moments that can create these feelings for you. So you can watch the movie at an emotional state. It needs to communicate the style of the author at that time. You do fiction because you can control the conclusions. And that is why we do fiction. I feel the whole shock of the film, Dhurandhar especially, has caused people to begin to talk about this word, use this word propaganda. I mean, it was there in Kashmir films. I was just, telling them that somehow it's been my luck that I've acted only in such films in Hindi, only films made on near history. I've done a slew of these films: Kashmir Files, Kashmir Files, Airlift, Talwar, Madras Cafe, and so on. I can go on with more lists, Mumbai Diaries, and so on. And these words have been coming up now. And I think the word propaganda should not be used in such an intelligent, rule. That's it.
You just have to hurry up a little bit.
I'm sorry, because it is big, so I just want to say that.
You're using silence just as I use silence. I had a very interesting conversation this morning with Sandeep, who is here, and he told me this little bit of information. He had made a documentary, I think 3 years back before Dhurandhar got released, 4 years back, called Hunting the Hijackers, in which Mystery Zahur Ibrahim, or the hijacker, was killed by unknown gunmen, and probably that became the trigger for the to strike Dhurandhar. Of course, close friend of mine, Aditya Kaul, also kind of a lot of research. Yeah, he wrote next one. Anyway, so most Hindi spy films, have followed the safety template of mission begins, villain appears, hero wins, flag play. And this question is to you, Atul. Dhurandhar completely moves away from that brain dead format. Timelines here unfold in years, not in days, like this is an actuals. Insurgents, acceptability, teamwork, extraction, sacrifice matters. It's consistent, as it always should be. The end is not always a grand finish. Intelligence work normally is destabilizing a network, disruption, probably an assassination here and there, but it's never a clear cut, it's messy. With an intelligent background like yours, what is your take on Dhurandhar? How they have treated the subject of intelligence and what they have brought in, and how is it different from what has been happening so far?
It has been done very well, I must say. And I mean, I was recollecting my own memories of films. I brand them good films so that they can attract my attention and they can hold my attention for the whole duration. Otherwise, I would like to dismiss certain films after a certain point of time. One film that I recollect is Saffron, which was a 90s film. I remember I was in UN Mission and there we had watched it on a laptop. And really a very well made film. But then you have very few and far between such films which really be realistic in that sense. So yes, Dhurandhar has definitely projected certain things which are close to reality in the intelligence story. I would still not call it fully as a reality would have, but yes, definitely close to the reality. And to that extent, I would say that the film has been definitely a success. As we were discussing, it doesn't treat the audience as a customer or a client to be kind of entertained, but it gives the role of an analyst also to the audience, and the audience is required to, the viewers are required to really analyze things, think about the next step, think about how this is going to pan out. So he's actually culprit. He made me watch Dhurandhar 2 yesterday. And I was out of town. I had to rush yesterday and then I saw that film right next door in Legal.
So this is a move from escapism to realism to immersion. It's immersive storytelling at its best. It makes you think. You become part of the script. You become part of the thinking. Your mind is thinking what's going to happen next, unlike in a play.
Yeah, so that's what I was actually telling. I saw it with my wife and she's here. So I was actually discussing things and thoughts with her. So, that's the way I got involved in the film. I think that's a big success.
So Prakash, from your movies, Madras Perfect, which is probably one of the most grounded movies that I saw a long time back, to Uri, which is specific detailing, procedures, now to Dhurandhar. One striking thing that comes to my mind and to a lot of people is that Aditya uses sound in silence like dialogue. The tension doesn't come from explosions. The tension comes from procedure, what's unsaid. Minimal score, ambient sound, natural lighting, handheld realism. A lot of it has been filmed with handheld cameras. It's not a tourist brochure, you're not flitting from Switzerland to Netherlands. It's one CD place where there are long shadows and grey overtones all the time. So I want to take us through the Hamza scene where he watches the 2611 unfolding. There's no gunfight, yet I thought it's one of the most terrifying scenes of the movie, one of the most powerful scenes of Dhurandhar. Why does the scene feel more disturbing than action? Can you just explain that cinematic brilliance?
It's some time ago that I saw that. See, but firstly, straight away simple cinematic techniques. When he shows the group that is laughing and enjoying, the bomb, the fire burning at the Taj. That is a wide shot, and that is a group. When he cuts and shows, Hamza feeling, it's a close-up. So he isolates him was by a very simple technique is it by using the close shot for him and using the wide shot for the group. And he isolates him and when he's a loner, he feels it. But there's a very clever thing that they do. When you see in most commercial cinema, to show the Taj burning, they would have shown a shot of the Taj or a set or a graphic, something like that to show that the Taj is burning. Very similar to lifelike is very important for cinema. It's the nature of cinema, convention of cinema. but they show it on the screen in the movie. So see, that is one of the great tricks of storytelling. It's a new grammar of cinema in the sense when he sets up a scene, he creates tension because what you call silence is that there is a stillness in it because it makes you think of what's going to happen now. You sit on the edge of the seat to watch what's going to happen, and then the action follows. Whatever.
And as an actor, how do you do that subtext constantly? How do you create a scene where the real scene is actually happening under the dialogue?
Because what it does, and I don't mean any offense because I think actors have done well. If one or two actors do very well, you can give credit to the actors. When all the actors do well, you have to give credit to the director. What it does is it does not let them act. He allows them only to behave. He says, "This is your character," and there are so many shots of him, Hamza just staring straight ahead and looking at one side, and that's it. He doesn't do anything else. I won't imitate anybody else, but he does it with everybody. He just gives them, "This is your specific thing to carry." And he allows you to create the subtext then. Because what he does is he allows the audience because he knows that they know the story. Like you're watching Ramayana or Mahabharata. They know this story as well. And he does not let you think, "I'm going to give a solution to the scene that makes you happy." He just says, "You remember, you saw this, what did you feel?" That is what he makes you feel, and that is why Dhurandhar can be very disturbing when you watch it. When you are asking this, I want to say there's a question about violence in the film. See, if you say the Mahabharata is very violent because, Draupadi asked Bhima to break the rib cage, tear the heart out and drink blood. Oh, Mahabharata is very violent, would you say? And the stakes are that big. It seems like appropriate to show that. And the gift of this director is that he can make the stakes so high in a simple scene. That the violence seems appropriate to that moment. In the Indian aesthetic we say rasa, dhvani, auchitya. Auchitya, is it appropriate for this thing? And he does that. That is why I feel he works, but he plays safe, hedges it by putting nostalgic old film songs when violence is happening. So he makes it kind of palatable.
Becomes the new action sequence. I want to ask you, Atul. See, what happens is, again, coming back to age-old, good-old Indian cinema, there is political ambiguity, there is geopolitical ambiguity. In Dhurandhar, you see inter-gang rivalries, you see politics at play, you see the Baluch dynamics, you see the Baluch fault line itself between the gang and the tribe, and it is startlingly evident. Everyone here is capable of brutality, everyone here is capable of manipulation. Nothing is simplified. The villain is not cartoonish. Mainstream cinema avoided geopolitical ambiguity. Dhurandhar embraces it. It runs on that steam. Do you think this is a sign of mature audiences? Or is it some deeper shift that is happening?
Definitely, the film industry is evolving when it comes to projecting real situations. So, to that extent, yes, it's a sign of evolving new, let's say, dynamics in the film industry in terms of storytelling. But if you ask about geopolitics, yes, there it is what is required for any film to be successful when it is dealing with geopolitics is knowing the nuances of the geopolitics. It's very difficult. Suppose tomorrow we are going to talk about China. Not much of China is known outside. So to know the geopolitics and talk about that theater, then including Tibet for that matter, will be a challenge. So anybody would want to skirt that issue and get into a simplistic plate.
So there's a huge risk at play when it took up something like this and give it to the audience.
Definitely, because Balochistan, I am sure many of us would know, it has got a very huge history in which India has had a today in terms of the Baloch population. So, and it has been a thorn in the neck of, or in the leg of Pakistan always. And that's how it has been exploited here.
In fact, at some point you see that the story is not good versus evil, it is probably system against system. In a deeper sense, that's what you get a feeling that there is one system working against another system, one dynamism working against another dynamism. It's not just one Salman Khan.
That's what. So that's what makes it more realistic. That the idea of using the Baloch fault lines and also getting them into a Pakistan Rangers uniform to demolish the educated further in the end is something.
So that's what they've been doing. Even they are doing it even today.
So that is one very nice idea which was used here, and that these kind of ideas in totality make the film more realistic.
See, I want to add, sir, that
See, Balochistan is 47% of Pakistan. And in the Indian imagination before it, we didn't, Baloch was some corner of Pakistan in our heads. But what it does is it dares to think that India understands this. And he makes Baloch such a big idea in the film. And for him to trust the audience like that is a gamble. Or maybe he knew, I don't know. But I think that trust paid off. The audience, I feel, felt respected by Dhurandhar, They felt that they were treated as intelligent. Yeah, that's true.
Yes, but if we see, the audience has been really, and the Indian general masses are really getting more and more educated thanks to social media. And also thanks to the incidents post movie, the happening. I'm not talking about the film, the happening, the incident. Thereafter Pulwama, there are a number of them, including
Just come to that and put the line up.
Yeah.
I don't want to get it cat out of the bag.
So the point is, I'm just trying to touch that. Basically, the mindset of Indian, an average Indian, is becoming more and more fertile to understand the nuances of such situations, grasp the situation, and accordingly maturely respond.
Okay, I want to ask this question to both of you. Cinema shapes national imagination. It's an accepted fact. We all know the Dubai funding. We all know the Belawadi involvement, Bade Saab involvement in the Indian, in the Bollywood industry for years. Now, they somehow created a psychosis. I think this was an intelligence warfare. If you actually look at it, we can be very polite about it and say, no, this and that. But actually, it was information warfare. They hit our political class, they hit the army, and this was information warfare at a mass level. Aman ki Asha, Indian raw agents romanticizing the ISI, getting married. It was entire hogwash. Now, suddenly Dhurandhar comes along and throws that narrative and that depiction and that storytelling out of the window, in your face. And he says, to hell with your funding, to hell with your control, to hell with what you want. This is what is there and this is what I will show. Is Dhurandhar changing the national narrative? Are we going to look at things differently now? Are we going to look at security concerns? Are we going to look at our terrorism issues? Are we going to look at how we view ourselves differently?
As we were just discussing before we came in, this idea of grappling with our near history has happened over the last 20 years. Madras Cafe, Nirja, and so on. We have come to a point where with Dhurandhar we have hit a phase where it seems it's taken root. You can make films like this now, you think. And you can be very sure that a number of new films will come which will be using the kind of new syntax and grammar that is used for cinema. Everybody will try their own version of it. It is a new grammar. As I told somebody, he's the new Yash Chopra. For one generation, it dominates the storytelling. I'm also struck by the fact that you're using the word Hindi cinema here, because I don't know whether it's deliberate, in which case really I must compliment you. Because you understand that Bollywood is not Dhurandhar, because Bollywood is going to let you go home with peace. You'll be going and thinking of where to have a drink maybe after you watch a film. But this one bothers you, right? It's a commercial.
You also want to drink.
Yeah. This film really bothers you. It is not a Bollywood film. Also, another last thing I'll tell you about this is that Bollywood is located nowhere in India. It used to be in Bengal for some time, it was in UP for some time, then it was in Punjab for some time. Although it was in Mumbai, it was in Punjab for some time. With Aditya Dhar has restored Hindi cinema to where it belongs. It belongs to India.
So the real shift, like we've been speaking, is in filmmaking, but I think the shift is also in the audience. And that brings me to the next question: that would Dhurandhar have been successful 15 years back? Or is it because it is at the right time, at the right moment? We've experienced so much. You said Uri, 2611, Pahalgam, the CRPF convoy getting, Pulwama. So we've been through it. There is like we were speaking the other day, that this seems to be like a national release after a restraint. The nation finds a release in a restraint that we have exercised on ourselves for 40 years, 50 years. So, but that moment has come now. So I want you to reflect on, because the OTT, we had Mirzapur, we had 24. So there has been.
No, I'll be very brief with this. See, I think you have to treat this very differently. Because India changed, new politics happened in India. It's because the Indian audience has changed that Dhurandhar has become a rage. See, you must understand, he did not spend 15, 20, 25 crores on print and advertising. P&L costs are very high when you make a film in India. What he did was he allowed word of mouth to happen. It's word of mouth that has made the film very big. See, when Kashmir Files was released, there was one newspaper that gave it half a star. The critics actually just looked to destroy the film. It's the people who made the film very big. What I'm saying is, India has changed. I agree with you, sir. India has changed because of social media, because of endless debates on television, because because we got experts like Sandeep, to come and talk. It makes a different kind of viewing, and understanding information flow. And because India has changed, Dhurandhar has happened. If it had just lasted for 2 weeks and gone, we would have had this discussion. It's just changed the way India will think about cinema from now on. Anybody who makes a film will have to think about this. You can hate the film as much as you want, but you cannot ignore it anymore.
Ram Gopal Verma said that any script which was written pre-26 March needs to be thrown out, and you need to get back to new script writing and new story. Nothing of that will work. And it's not a shake-up call, it's not a wake-up call, it's like a destruction of the Bollywood industry. So is this the end of Bollywoodism?
I think this chapter of Bollywoodism is ended.
And the entry of the grand hero, the entry the scene.
I think the hero can solve everything is gone. I think in Madras Cliff itself, the hero solves nothing. He loses. But people took it. Madras Cliff was an important film in that sense. Because it was a new idea of telling a story. And I think with Dhurandhar, people will dare to make films where they don't win. The heroism will be that they dare to fight, that they dare to resist. That will be the new heroism, I think.
Yeah, so there's no one hero here. I mean, you look at individual characters, they're equally strong. They might not have so much space and screen time, but they are equally strong, and they are carrying. If you see the social media post today and you see the kind of following they are getting, even the guy who blew up Chaudhary's car has got recognition, and there are people following him. He had barely 3 minutes in the movie. That's the kind of character that has got created. What do you feel about
slightly different view? The old style of film making also will continue, because there is a class which is wanting that also to be there. Of course, with this, with the arrival of Dhurandhar, a new paradigm has come into picture, and that will be definitely the paradigm which will be.
It will be the dominant one.
Yes, I mean, times to come, probably yes.
So I want to ask you one more question. Is this, you know, when you made movies which are related to this genre, they were basically war movies. They were very less movies based on intelligence operations, spy operations. Is there a shift to moving from war movies to spy movies or intelligence operations? Is there a shift in that? Do you think that will this will kind of create a wave like that?
There is already a way. Even on the OTT platforms, you see films. I was just remembering, recollecting how many films I have seen connected with spy world in the last maybe few months. One gets a little more time now to watch films. So, and I was actually amazed at the variety. Though none of them may not have actually clicked also. But yes, this is one area which is not, which is still alien to the minds of the people. People don't really know how things work in this, let's call it a very grey world of intelligence operations, or spy operations. And that's where probably their imagination will be tickled when such kind of films are made. Just coming back to Dhurandhar, the last, one of the last shots is, Hamza comes back as a Sardar to his home and sees the family. His sister and her children and the mother. He is just there standing watching the family. The family closes the main gate and goes into the inner room. And he is just watching there, standing quiet, probably realizing that he is no more wanted. That's what the complexity an intelligence operative faces, a spy faces. He becomes absolutely a persona non grata in his own family. The country also doesn't own him. Once he is outside, the country is not going to own him if he is going to make any mistake. They are not going to say he is an Indian and we had sent him. So, a realistic frame, and I found it actually.
I want to talk to you about one more aspect of intelligence operations. When I was a young officer, as a captain, and I remember operating in Anupgarh, an officer town. I don't know how you would have heard those names, Anupgarh and Suratgarh. And we used to have these intelligence operatives, drug peddlers, crossers, people who were carrying weapons, virtually outcast to the society. And I was shocked that they were intelligence operatives. And the shock to me because I grew up reading books and looking at them with the halo around them. And then much later I realized that intelligence operations uses whoever benefits them for that moment. And they look like expendable commodities to me, and they were. Because if they got caught, the mission probably gets handed over, the story finishes, no one knows what's happened to them, no one talks about them. Throughout Dhurandhar, one gets that feeling that Hamza is expendable. And that is what happens in intelligence operations. The guy is expendable, you can't own him.
Very true. The earlier part that you were saying, see, in the intelligence parlance, we say you have to merge with the background. Your ability to merge with the background is tested. And if you merge with the background, then you are there. You are there until you are merging with the background. The moment you step out, there is a problem. So to that extent, I would say Hamza making that big home in the swimming pool and all is a little daring to me. He is supposed to actually be having a very modest house and a very modest way of life. So as
something like his mentor had, that tea shop owner.
So that you don't get into the adverse notice of the adversaries. Having said that, what you say is very right. That the other characters in Dhurandhar, like Alam, who was the tea shop owner, they have been there for a number of years. Even the politician is there for 4 decades or something he was telling in the end. But he has been able to hold his ground. Not only that, make inroads up to Badesar and maybe probably poison him. Slow poisoning where we will be seeing his end. Very ambitious, but yes, this is what an intelligence officer should aim at.
I just want to say one note of caution. The appeal of Dhurandhar, it is a spy story. The appeal is that when he looks at that, say, that 26/11, the burning of the hotel, when he looks at that and what he feels, you also feel. The identification you make with him at that moment is not that he's a spy, but that is a fellow Indian who feels. I feel that is the great achievement that the film has. It goes into this, the rasa of the moment. You know, it is everything else makes that moment possible. The plot, the spy story, the characters make that moment possible. And this is classical Indian storytelling. This is how Kalidasa recommends a play should be written, for instance. You know. So this is classical. What he does is he makes you feel yourself what he's feeling as much as possible. That's the attempt. And we can agree or disagree, but I think to a very large extent, Aditya has succeeded in doing that.
Yes, of course. Also, one more aspect which I would want to kind of flag. We are still to cover some distance before we reach the standards of films like The Spy Who Came from the Court. We were discussing the Taylor and the Spy and other things. So the classic Western spy stories, we are still to reach that stage. But yes, we have started our journey on that. I hope. And OTT certain stories like The Family Man are really promising.
True. So I think the real shift is not with Dhurandhar, but I think the real question today is that can Indian or Hindi film cinema carry on pretending? That's the question that I want to leave you with. Thank you. You enjoyed it. If you have any questions,
Yes.
you.
We're open to questions. We have another 5 to 7 minutes. So 2 to 3 questions.
Prakash, so my question is to you on the movie or anyone else who wants to answer. I'm a Kashmiri Pandit and found myself defending the truth of Kashmir files to my maid and to everyone around me. Do you feel the treatment, the certain dramatic parts of that treatment took away from the real truth of the issue and it took Kashmir Files and the other films that you've kind of worked on, where the directors were a little restrained, they were getting there, but this completely kind of did it, except for what Atulchandra said that, Prakash said that maybe some parts were not real, but kind of acceptable, but more real than ever before. So is it a progressive kind of a thing?
See, when Kashmir Files was said to me, came to me as a script, I wrote to Vivek Agnihotri saying, what I think should be. We went back and forth. Many people actually discussed a lot. See, for instance, in Kashmir Files, not a single rape scene is shown. Some restraint had to be exercised. But, since you're Pandit, the violence that is shown in Kashmir Files is very little compared to what violence actually happened. This whole Bowdlerizing of how the film should be shown as an aesthetic to the audience is irritating. There's a reality that is so harsh. There are thousands of Kashmiri Pandits still living in refugee camps. 700,000 Kashmiri families cannot go back. I know you changed the law, but I wouldn't dare to go and buy property in Kashmir. So the problems are not solved. But I think people connected with that because there is a problem that they see and we feel ashamed that we can't do anything about it. And what the film offered was an opportunity to discuss it and begin to ask questions. And I think from that, what that experiment of Kashmir, Bengal Files did not work. We were discussing it didn't work because it is over and done with. I can't do anything about that. But there is something we can do about Kashmir. We need to still do something about Kashmir. We need to do something about the issues that Dhurandhar raises. I think that we can come to that kind of engagement, then it will be no longer entertainment. You come here, eat popcorn, watch film and go, it will be more than that, I think. And I think it's high time we got there and we did that because Hollywood must retire from it now because they've caused more wars in the world than anybody. Somebody posted that, it's called, Israel war and Iran war and so on because if you have to call it US war, then nobody will know which one you're talking about.
On a fundamental level, aren't films made to take you away from your drudgery of life? If I'm bringing you back all the time and focusing on that, then why do I require the film? I have got my whole life to back up.
I think the person who finances the film and he looks to earn an income back will want the film to bring audiences to it. But I think an artist makes a film or does a play or writes a poem because they have learned to say something. They need to express it. And I think there should be a marriage of these two things. That somebody wants to say something honestly and deeply with feeling. And somebody says, all right, I think there's a possibility that people will like this also, I'll fund it. Otherwise, it will be just both sides saying the same thing will be terrible. And the audience expecting that will become a very poor society.
On the reality side, Kashmir Files, why there is an explaining required to be done by the viewers. You are a Kashmiri yourself, so a sufferer in the sense. But general viewers also are required to do a lot of explaining. So all the skill is kind of probably real projection. It's basically because all the aspects of reality were never brought into the focus. They were probably brushed under the carpet at the time when the things happened. And then everybody was wanting to say, no, nothing too wrong has gone off. So that is the problem. And I think to that extent the film has again brought the issue in focus. So you had a question?
Yeah. First thing is, it was a very interesting discussion. Sir, you mentioned that in Kalidas says that your creation should be like audience should experience or feel that he is the hero, he is a character. Explain. Now you said Dhurandhar does that. But don't you think that this has been happening before in Bollywood? I'm talking in the word Bollywood, typical Bollywood, yes, Chopra also. Like Diva, Amitabh Bachchan, everyone thought, young man, that Amitabh. So this has been happening. So those movies were also okay. But Dhurandhar has created some different impact on people. So what do you think is the exact difference between these?
See, when I watched Diva, it was a terrific film, I'm not denying that. But I never thought, I felt that I can say that I can feel what he's feeling, I can say, but I cannot say it is what I've experienced myself. But in Dhurandhar, it's not like that. You feel like you experience, the shame that he feels is the shame that Indians have felt with helplessness after what happened in Mumbai to not to do anything. We've all felt that shame. And he does something about getting that moment there, And I'm saying it's an extraordinary achievement for both sides, for the filmmaker and for the audience, that we can connect like this. Diva was like, it's an experience of performance that you enjoy, but you don't go home disturbed about what's happening to India. But Dhurandhar makes you disturbed. I think it is very different, that experience. This is India's first soft power film. Not Gandhi. This film is. I'm saying, I think it is kind of really trivial to write a criticism saying, I like this film and this is shot well, this is not shot well. Actually, it's transcended that problem for the moment, You need to see why it is successful. I think that is why your questions are so important. Why was the film successful? There is something that the audience have done to it. It's not just the filmmaker.
Thank you so much. It's a very interesting conversation.
Which one?
Okay.
In fact, it was not him. Since you said that we tend to, or not rather, we get the operatives who we don't want to compare. And going beyond his personal also, can we see in the near future that these films may impact, that at least the conclusions and the subjects and those can pressurize the government to at least get them back. And innocent decision.
I think we are adding to our heft in last few years at least. We have been doing country as a country. We have added huge to our heft, and we are now having that kind of power to negotiate and do the things that are required to get the pollution. That should happen in the future. Even in this film also, there is a bargain. We've seen that. And that bargain finally sees through that comes back to India. No questions asked, no things be nothing be.
In a different context, we got Abhinandan back. With so
Yes.
much of fan
Yes. And there are a number of others. See, all these operations also in intelligence domain happen behind the curtain. Not much is moved. So number of such exchanges could have happened in the past and they continue to happen with more strength.
Half a minute.
I just keep it.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. A minute. Fascinating discussion, absolutely fascinating. I'm just riveted by what three of you, perspectives that we brought. And as I was telling Prakash ji before we entered, I said this setting reminds me of a Hollywood film, which is the most violent Hollywood film I've seen, which does not have a single act of violence in it. It's called Conspiracy. It's a Kenneth Branagh movie in 2001 where the top 15 members of the Third Reich meet and they decide the final solution. How casually they talk about killing 7-10 million Jews. That's point number one. Second point is that, Prakashji, what you said about that scene from 26/11. I've been covering terrorism for about 25 years. I was a college student in 1993 on a double-decker bus, 123, from Wilson College to RC Church. I remember seeing the blast of the stock exchange, and I'll never forget this. One police van was taking a turn from towards Church Gate. And I'll never forget what I saw at the back of the police van. There were legs sticking out of our countrymen, white, coated in dust. And for 20 years, I've seen us being attacked. Over 600 Mumbaikars have died in blasts, in trains, in hotels. Thousands have been injured and all that. And on that night of 10th of May, I remember we were on air live on India Today, and somebody said Chakrala and Sargoda have been hit. So I immediately caught my fellow anchors and it's fake news. I don't think it's correct. We could not have done this, we could not have gone and hit them in Chakrala and Sargoda because for 20 years we've been told that these are places that India will never hit, we will never target. The Pakistan deep state will continue doing whatever it does. Muridke will remain, Bahawalpur will remain. But I think something changed in India in 2025. And I think what the Prime Minister said on the 10th of May, when he called out this talks and terror, he drew the new red lines on nuclear blackmail, and he said this nonsense of state and non-state actors. That thing, I think it's one of the most consequential speeches made by an Indian Prime Minister. And I think Dhurandhar came on the coattails of that changed security scenario. 5th of December, you actually saw it. And I think the one-line review, the best review I got for Dhurandhar was from my friend in our housing society in Delhi. She's a doctor, Dr. Aditi Rastogi, and she said this, that, it was a cathartic experience for me because after decades of seeing ISI and RAW, singing, running around trees, finally we saw some action being taken, at least in Hindi cinema, So, to add to your point, that thing of Hamza standing there and the camera cutting to him, extreme close-up, that was actually all of us. He was all of us and we felt this. And that is why
He said that yesterday last
the movie connected with every one of us who's been through this, who's slept in the blood of our countrymen, who's seen this kind of violence, that finally something has changed. That's fine. Thank you. Sorry
Thank
for
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep.